Hi, welcome back by my Expo 2. We're gonna watch another video by Dr. K on a diary of a CEO. I hope you have fun.
Polysubstance abuse to this successful person?
So I think the best place to start, I know it's going to sound kind of simple, but is to look at yourself. So what a lot of us do is anytime we have a problem, the first thing that we do is we try to jump to a solution. So if I'm unhappy in life, I need to make more money. If I'm struggling with dating, I need to get a better job or be sexier or whatever. So we tend to jump to solutions. So I think the first thing that you've got to do is slow a little bit down and look at yourself. And when you look at yourself, there are a couple of things that I think a lot of people really miss. The first is what drives a lot of their behaviors. So we focus so much on fixing a behavior, like using heroin, for example, right? But we don't really ask ourselves, why am I using heroin in the first place? Where does the drive for using heroin come from? And that is the key question, right? So it's not about how you need to change. It's about why am I the way that I am? And this is where people make such a simple mistake. I'd say the majority of people that I talk to, when they look at themselves, they're not critically thinking. What they actually do is they'll make some kind of conclusion. I'm lazy. So think about what that means. Laziness, first of all, is not a thing. There is not a laziness circuit in the brain. You can't measure laziness. Laziness is a lazy way of looking at laziness. If we look at human behavior, motivation, discipline.
If you have problems with your self-motivation, it is true if you try to kick yourself in the ass and just do it for 2 months, it will be a new automatic and it will become easier.
Things like follow-through, willpower. These are all discrete functions within our brain, and then we just say, oh, we're lazy. But which one of those things is lacking? So as we understand, okay, why are we lazy? What does that really mean? Where is my motivation coming from? What is the status of my willpower? As we explore these kinds of things, that's when we see really what the answer is. And the really cool thing is if you look at a lot of research on things like, we use this technique called motivational interviewing, where in order to change behavior, you don't need to convince anyone of anything. You need to help people understand things. And once a human being understands something themselves, they will automatically change behavior, right? If I tell you, hey, Steven, don't touch that pan, it's hot, and you touch the pan and you burn yourself, you won't listen to me. But the moment that you touch it and you get burned, suddenly your behavior will change on its own. We learn through experience. But if you look at the way that most people try to solve their problems, it's not through experience, it's through information. Oh, I have a problem, let me buy a book. I have a problem, let me listen to a podcast. Let me watch a YouTube video. And this is what we see, right? There are literally millions, if not tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people out there who are gaining a lot of information about change, but aren't actually changing. It's wild.
Why is that? There's quite a complex psychological thing, because there's a certain type of person who is like a self-development junkie, but they never self-develop.
Yeah.
They go to all the conferences, they watch all the videos, they've got, they know all the words, but they don't actually put anything into action.
Yeah, so there's a lot of subtlety, but the craziest thing is that, see, anytime we engage in some kind of self-help kind of thing, it actually is a coping mechanism to deal with some negativity within us. So let's say that I feel like I'm lazy. So then my mind looks at me and says, okay, I'm lazy, I need to do something about it. And then it's really tricky, right? Because your brain sees two options. One is that I can do something hard, or the other is I can do something easy. And we have to understand this. The brain has evolved to be lazy. The brain has evolved. Laziness is efficiency. We want to get the most yield out of the smallest investment. So then what happens is our brain is like, okay, I could go to the gym, or I could watch a video about working out. And if I watch a video about working out, I will be more efficient when I go to the gym. There are all kinds of scams that we run in our mind to actually activate parts of our brain that make us feel like we're making progress without actually making progress. That's how you become a self-development junkie or self-help junkie.
On this point of psychotherapy not being perfectly designed for men, I was watching a clip before you arrived where a lady who's an author of a book that's just come out said that talking about our problems makes them worse. And I was wondering if that's true.
It can be. So I think this is a big problem, is that talking about our problems can absolutely make things worse. So let's understand a couple of things. So the first is that there's this assumption that talking about your problems makes them better, but there are actually very specific things that need to happen in order for talking about your problems to make things better. The most important thing is something called an emotional catharsis. So this is where you have like a breakthrough in therapy. So there's like this moment where there's a lot of dormant stuff, and Freud even described this, where you have this moment of very, very intense emotion that is relatively new. Or, I mean, it's kind of dormant, but it's not like venting. We'll get to venting in a second. And so there's a particular way we have to talk about problems that triggers emotional catharsis. Emotional catharsis creates something called, like a breakthrough. So this is also like an experience. So this is not just talking about my problems. This is experiencing my problems in a different way. So it's kind of like touching the hot pan. Usually it's kind of painful. So when we're doing like work with a trauma survivor, we don't want to just talk about the trauma. We want to sort of dig into it a little bit more and have an emotionally healing experience. The real problem is that sometimes what will happen is people will just talk about their problems. So they'll use therapy as essentially like a venting session. And venting, if we look at kind of the neuroscience of venting, venting is useful for reducing our negative emotion in the moment. But this is the really tricky thing. If we kind of think about it, like I'll ask you, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but why do we have negative emotions, Stephen?
It's a signal.
For what?
I would guess that depends on the negative emotion, but I guess it's a signal that is there to help us connect with people.
Oh, okay. So I think it can be, sure.
Loneliness.
Loneliness is a great example of a signal that's designed to connect with you. What about something like anger or fear? Why do we have fear?
To warn us against impending danger?
Absolutely, right? So if I'm like running through the jungle and I see a tiger, and I have fear. Fear gives us information, and what else does it do?
Gives us a physiological energy and
Very
reaction,
good.
Adrenaline.
Absolutely. For what purpose?
To flee.
Absolutely. So this is a big thing that people don't understand. The primary motivator for change is actually negative energy, a negative emotion. So this is the problem with venting. If you vent and get rid of all of your negative emotional energy, the drive to change will disappear. So if we kind of think about it, what motivates you the most?
I hope you had a lot of fun today. Subscribe, like, and comment. See you next time. Bye bye.